Hello, welcome to the Elevate Your Wellbeing Podcast with your host, Rachael Wagstaff. It is episode 20. 20 episodes have been coming your way. It's been really incredible, and I'm really loving this podcast, and I hope you are as well. But before we dive into this week's topic, make sure you have some natural light on you. It really, really helps with helping you wake up and feel focused and refreshed. And make sure you have some water. Always like to pause and have a little sip when I say that. And also make sure you have your journal ready. You might want to take some notes. I've got some really good tips for you today. And this is something that's made a huge, huge difference for me in my well-being and in how I work. So don't switch off if you're like, oh, I don't know, I don't own a business, I don't run a business. Honestly, I think everyone should. And I know I don't like using the word should, but I really feel everyone should try and run a business at least once, because it really makes a difference in how you do really show up for yourself. But do make sure you have a journal ready so you can journal through the prompt I'm going to be giving you at the end of today's episode. So this episode is all about the FOOT method. FOOT, the FOOT method. So you might be like, what on earth is that? Now, I've had a little Google and I don't believe anyone has called it this, but I'm sure so many people do this type of tip or tool or way to prioritize how to get things done. But FOOT is what I call it, the FOOT method. So if you are really organized, you might want some extra tools and tips on how you can be even more organized. If you're really disorganized and you just want to get things done, if you feel overwhelmed with your to-do list, then this episode really is for you. So regardless of whether you're a stay-at-home mum or you're a business owner or you're just someone who's wanting to improve your performance at work, in your career, if you're wanting to help with your well-being, because to be fair, I don't think there's much more stressful than looking at a huge to-do list and not even knowing where to start or what's the best way to start. And I would just want to touch on that, because sometimes it's that you go with the low-hanging fruit, which I love that philosophy of go with the low-hanging fruit, do something to get started, because when you get that momentum, it really, really helps. So doing something that's quick and dirty, basically, it's like why I love the Rise and Shine Wellbeing membership, because it's 15 minutes. Literally a 15-minute practice is 1% of your day. And you're like, yeah, you get a little dopamine hit because like, I did it. I did something for me. It took 15 minutes, and it's that kind of one and done thing. And you could look at your to-do list and think the same thing. What's going to be quick? What's going to be easy? And I can get it done. But then the other way really to look at it is what is actually essential? What needs to be done? Because it can be really easy to look at something that's really simple and do like a million little things, but then you still have the big stuff to do. Or, especially, and it's really easy for me to relate to this in a business, but with the analogies I'm using, you might be like, yeah, I feel that in my personal life. And this is how I can bring it in. This is why I love working not only as a well-being coach, but as a business mentor, whether that's helping you with your business or even setting up a business, because I learned so much to do with mindset and tools on being what's classed as like a high performance, coaching or even working in a high performance way by being a business owner. And that's why I said at the beginning of this episode, I really feel everyone should, and I don't use that word lightly, should. I really feel everyone should run their own business or have a go of running their own business at least once, so you can really see how it can help you to grow. Because I don't feel I would be here chatting to you on here with my own podcast if I hadn't been running one of my businesses, because I was really encouraged by my mentors who start a morning routine. And it's by falling in love with that morning routine that I really focused on helping other people create a morning routine. But it was through that I realized how much I love helping people run a business, create that freedom for themselves, who really love their life right now, not waiting for the weekend, not waiting for the next holiday or vacation, not waiting for retirement. And I really feel what we're going to go into on today's topic really helps with that as well, because by working with the foot method, which I'm going to explain in a moment, helps give you more freedom. Now, as I always like to highlight what the moon cycle's in, and it always makes me chuckle when I look and I'm like, right, what do I want to talk about? Yes, this. And oh, look, that's where the moon is at. So we're in last quarter moon. So we're winding down. We might not feel that we have as much energy. So you want to focus on what you can really utilize the energy you have to do the most productive thing. What's really going to help you get things done. So, and before I go into that, the moon is in Capricorn. Capricorn is very task oriented. It's like get things done, get things focused. And Capricorn is like the elder earth sign. It's, when we think about like a head teacher or a guru or sort of government, it's what's giving all the tasks. It's like the head of the household sort of thing. So it's owning that. And that's where one of these tools and tips really will come through, with owning that authority. So sometimes it's like, all right, I've got all these things to do on the to-do list, but I really want to do this. And it's then looking at your to-do list and thinking, okay, well, I don't really have a lot of energy. So what's really going to help me to think, okay, I've done that, I can relax. I've done that, I can relax. And if you've been watching along on social media, there, for what I share, I had been sharing about batching, and batching can be really good because, for me, I really resisted it because I was like, but I want to show up authentically as what I'm feeling right now. But it's hard to be consistent because we all have our ebbs and flows, those highs and lows, and especially as a woman, because we have a 28-day cycle approximately, whereas men have a 24-hour cycle. So men do tend to get a bit more refreshed. And yes, you have your highs and lows, your ebbs and flows, etc., but not in the same way. And it's really honoring those two polar sort of opposites. So depending on where you are at in your cycle as a woman, you're more likely to want to show up. So I know where I am in my cycle. I'm actually batching these podcasts right now. And I started this when I first started the podcast. And then I went into a sort of a weekly showing up with what I wanted to talk about. And I noticed how that shifted in my energy, and actually batching at least 2 episodes per week. If I can, I will do some more depending on my energy. But that's the key thing. It's where is my energy with how I'm wanting to show up. And for me, being on the podcast is very social. I want to imagine that we're sat together in a coffee shop or in my kitchen, or we're going for a walk somewhere in nature and we're having a natter about this particular topic. And that is really key. So as a woman, I would also look at your cycle and see where, you have those highs and lows with how you want to show up. And that can be huge with how you show up for yourself, how you show up for your family, how you show up for your career, how you show up for your business, and take that from there. So what really do you want to put your energy into? And you can use a reward system if it helps. Like when I get that done, I can do that. I sometimes do it, and it can feel a bit silly. It's like, I really want a cup of tea or a little like chunk of chocolate, but I'll record this first, and then I can give myself that little dopamine hit by, okay, I've done that, and then I can have the reward, rather than I'll do that first and then I'll get to the thing later, and then I don't have the energy to do the thing. So let's drop what is the FOOT method, FOOT, focus on one task or focus on one thing. So rather than splitting your focus, like I need to write a newsletter, and then I need to film a podcast, and I need to film some content for my Rise and Shine Wellbeing, and then I need to do some coaching. Batching is focusing on one thing. Focusing on one thing. So at the time of me recording this, I'm on day 3 of doing some major batching. So on day 1, I recorded 8 of the 13 for this month. Those 13 practices that were pre-recorded, and that's all the yoga practices. So I batched 8 of those. So 2 hours worth of content that took me probably 2.5, 3 hours in total to do, because obviously there's that in between of recording and setting up, etc. But it just meant I could be in that one mindset of, right, I'm in my yoga teacher mindset and I'm doing this, and it's just 15 minutes, so it's quick and short and simple. And then on day 2, I went in with some of my newsletters. So I was like, okay, that way I can be in the mindset of, right, I want to talk about this water and what this water's done for me and why I love this water and some elements of the water in the business. And I could be really in that mindset. So I wasn't splitting my focus, because there's nothing worse. And I don't have the statistic to hand, but I do really love this, is that when you're in the flow and then you get interrupted, I'm sure it's something like it takes at least 30 minutes for you to get back in the flow for what you're doing. So if you can focus on one task and then you can batch those out. And a friend of mine, she was like, oh my God, you wrote 5 newsletters in an hour. So I literally spent an hour yesterday, was my day 2 of batching. I spent an hour or just over an hour yesterday writing 5 newsletters. 4 of them were on the water wellbeing business. And then I drafted one, an extra one. And then I had one for my Elevate Your Wellbeing, which goes out every month. Not every month, sorry, every week. And it changes throughout the month with regards to the moon. So unlike the podcast where I do this every Friday, but I still highlight the cycle of the moon, my other newsletter goes out on the full moon, on the last quarter moon, on the new moon, on the first quarter moon. It varies, but there will always be one a week. And I've drafted all of those ready for April. I just need to go in and then tweak it with a topic. And I want to start doing that around the podcast episode, so it leads into each other. And there's something else I want to do for my Instagram account, which I started in the new year because I was just given a challenge, but it was too broad. And then I started bringing it into my mind of, right, how can I have that focusing on one task? And then that's what I want to do with my content. It's like this week, my content will be focused on this particular area. So everything is focusing on one thing. And that can be really, really powerful. And that allows you so much more freedom. So today, as I'm recording this episode, I've just recorded episode 19. And now this is episode 20. So I'm doing a little bit of batching. And this takes a little bit longer because of how I record. And then I'm checking what I want to talk about and seeing if there's any research I want to do prior to it, which I very rarely do. I sort of go on what I already know. And then it's thinking about the journaling prompts, but then it's the additional admin of setting it all up and putting it on Spotify and putting it up on YouTube and writing the newsletters to go around with it. So people have a nudge of this episode's available, go and have a listen. So a 20-minute episode could take at least 30 minutes for me to go through, but it means I'm focusing on that one task. It's like, right, I've already got everything open. It makes sense to batch. And it is really, really helpful. And then because it's all done, we're coming up for a long weekend. So it's the Easter weekend. So I imagine you probably have Easter Friday, Easter Sunday, Easter Monday off. And I'm like, well, I want to have the Thursday off as well. So I'm pretty much wrapping up my work week today on the Wednesday. And I'm not really going to touch my business again until Tuesday. So I can have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 5 days off. Then come back into my business again on the Tuesday and the Wednesday. And then I know next week I then have most of Thursday off. I have one coaching client in the evening, and then that's it. So, this gives me that freedom to then have more availability in my life to then enjoy other things. So by giving myself an hour or two to focus on batching, focusing on one task, I can really hone in and then specialize on that task. I'm not being split and pulled in different directions. So a tool that you can use to do this is the Pomodoro technique. The Pomodoro technique. And you might have heard of this. I've given this technique to some of my coaching clients because it really helps if you're looking at the to-do list and you're like, I have this one big thing that needs doing, but I also have this, 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 and this. And then you can use that as a little bit of the reward task. So you can set, and there's some differences with the Pomodoro. Some people do 20 minutes. Some people do 25. I recommend doing 3 lots of 25. So you sit down with the task that you're going to do and you set a timer for 25 minutes. And then when that timer goes off, you give yourself a 5-minute break. So you set another timer. And in that 5 minutes, you do something completely different. So I could be sitting down, for example, and writing class plans or writing out a newsletter or prepping some work with a client. Once that 25-minute timer goes off, I could go, okay, I've got 5 minutes, so I'm going to go to the loo, I'm going to go make a cup of tea, I'll refill my water. I might have a quick little snack. I might put the laundry on. I might be unloading the laundry, for example. So it's all these little things that need doing. It could be unloading and reloading the dishwasher. And then once those 5 minutes stop, I come back to the task. So then in those 5 minutes, I could get those low-hanging fruit to-dos off my to-do list. But I'm giving myself that short, little sharp, like the 5 minutes, and then I'm done. And then I'm coming back in. I've had a little pause, and it's amazing how many ideas come up in that pause. Because like, oh yeah, just stepped away from it, but now I can come back, and then I've got another 25-minute cycle to really focus on what I'm doing. And at the end of that 25-minute timer goes off, you set another timer for 5-minute break. You have 5 minutes, and then when those 5 minutes are up, you have your last 25-minute cycle. And then you give yourself a 5-minute break, and then you can come back into a Pomodoro flow for a different task. So ideally, you're giving yourself that hour and a half to really focus on one task with 3 5-minute breaks. And then you can step away from it. And you might be like, oh, I can really focus on it for that bit longer, but it's actually really, really good to step away and then come back to it. So you might come back to it tomorrow or come back to it in a week, obviously depending on what the task is. So I have found sometimes that a task I would have thought would have taken me a full Pomodoro cycle actually only took the first 25 minutes or took 2 25-minute cycles. So then I could go, okay, that's done. Or I might then use that last one to then come back and review it. So that's one of my favorite tools and techniques to go through. So I want to just touch on, before I wrap up this episode for this week, the 3 Ds of time efficiency. Now, time management is key. If you're someone that's like, I'd love to do that, but I just don't have the time to do it, or I'm just not organized, or I'm just not focused. And one of my mentors really, I love the story he does with this because it always makes me chuckle. It's like he was mentoring someone who is a yogi. So I can really relate to this. So, as yogis, we can feel like we're, free flowing, going with the flow, not tied down, blah, 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 blah. And it was like, I really want to go on this event. And he was like, yeah, go for it. Why not? And she replied with, well, I just don't have the time. I don't have that availability. Because she was too much go with the flow. It was I have all these things to do, that if I had been a bit more disciplined and worked on my time management, my time efficiency, I could have actually gone to do the thing that I would really love to do. And ironically, as business owners, we tend to say, well, I'm going to run my own business, so I have more freedom of choice of how I spend my time, but then we tend to be a bit more casual with it, and then we end up missing out. Or if you feel that you miss out because you're not as organized in your job, so then you end up staying late or working weekends, or you don't enjoy the weekend as much because you're dreading what's left for you on Monday morning because you're leaving it to the last minute, you're not efficiently using your time very well. So the 3 Ds, and these are really, really good. And this is where I came back in the beginning, where I was saying about, the moon is in Capricorn. It's all about authority, taking charge and having that authority to go, right, this is on my to-do list. So you're going to write out all the things you have to do, whether that's today or whether that's this week or what you'd like to achieve by the end of the month. Have a sip of water. And then you're going to do the 3 Ds. You're going to delegate, taking that authority. And I know some of you are like, oh, I don't know if I can delegate anything. No one can do this as well as I can. If someone can do it at least to 80% well, then you're golden. It doesn't have to be 100%. It's allowing yourself to let go and delegate. So look at your to-do list. What could you delegate? Like, who could you trust to do that? Or who, if it's at home, it's encouraging, say, the kids, or asking your partner, like, look, this would really help if you could help me do this. Delegate it. The second one is, what could you delay? So you've delegated some things. What could you delay on your to-do list? And I was kind of going through this a little bit at the beginning. It's like some of it's low hanging fruit. It could be things that are really simple to do, but are they really what we call in the business world needle movers? So are these the big tasks that will actually make a big difference? Like if I can get this done, I won't feel stressed. If I could get this done, I can relax. If I could get this done, I'll actually earn some money in my business. Or are you focusing on all the low hanging fruit, as in it's all simple things to do, but it's just going to be something you're going to end up having to do again and again and again tomorrow? So how could you delay something that's really not as important as what is important on your to-do list? So you've delegated some things, maybe even all the things, you never know. But how can you delay? What could be delayed? It's not really important. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't happen today. Super, super important to really highlight what could be delayed. And then there's the last one, which is ditch or delete. So you've delegated some stuff, you're delaying some stuff, but what isn't important at all? What can be ditched or deleted? What are you putting on the list that doesn't really need to be put on the list? What's not important? And then hopefully, if you're left with anything, you're only really left with 1 to 3 items. So you've delegated, you're delaying, and then you're ditching. What's left on your to-do list? Hopefully, you only have 1 to 3 things to really focus on. And then that comes back to the foot method with focus on one task. Choose one. What's the most important? Or out of all of them, what would cause you the less stress if you could do it now and it's done, it's out of the way? So ideally on your to-do list, you don't really want to be focusing on more than 1 to 3 things per day. So you can really hone in and really perform well on that task. So I'd love to know. So if you're listening to this episode, do a little screenshot, share it on your social media, tag me, especially if you're using Instagram, pop it on your stories and tag me at I am Rachael_UK. Rachael is Rachael. You might be putting it up as a post and tagging me. That's always really nice. So all my details are in the show notes. I also want to highlight that I am now opening, or I had from last week, I'm opening the podcast up to a subscription as well. So I will be adding in more content. So I'd love to hear from you. What would you love to hear from? If you're like, I really love the coaching aspect of what's coming out every week on the podcast. Maybe you don't feel quite ready yet for what actual one-on-one coaching, but you'd love to hear some more coaching on the podcast. And then it's $7.99 a month. And you're also getting the yoga nidra meditations. So if you're not necessarily interested in doing like a weekly hour-long yoga class with me within the membership, I mean, there's 3 classes a week. They're all an hour each, and then they're recorded. So the membership is amazing. All the details are in the show notes. But if you really want that yoga nidra, which at the moment is 1 per month, so there'll be one coming out in 2 weeks' time here on the podcast, or just under 2 weeks' time, because it'll be coming out on the Monday. Then you can sign up and subscribe to the Elevate Your Wellbeing podcast subscription site, and you'll get the yoga nidra meditation once a month, which would be amazing. Or maybe you're ready to take that leap and work with me one-on-one, which means we get together on Zoom, on camera, we get to chat about elevating your well-being or elevating your business, getting started with your business, which is really exciting. The details are in the show notes to book your one-on-one 90-minute call, so an hour and a half. And once you've booked one of those with me, you can continue booking the 90-minute ones. Maybe that's what works for you. So you might just do that once a month. Or you then get the opportunity to view my private diary, which means you have more dates and times to book in when you dive into the coaching container through. So you get 3 months, or you could do 6 months with me, and we have a one-on-one every single week, which is an hour. So really think about how you can work on this. So if you listen to today's episode and you're like, I don't know how I could use my time more efficiently, I'm not sure how I could delegate or ditch or delete or delay certain tasks, this is where I can come in and help you be accountable with learning how to do those. So let's go into today's or this week's journaling prompt. So opening up your journal and then just reflecting. Maybe some things have come up for you that as I've spoken through this week's episode. So what areas of your life are causing you stress? What areas of your life are causing you stress? So these could be what you delete, delay, delegate, or maybe you need to use the tool so you focus on that one task so you can be done with it. And then going into that a little bit more, what areas of your life are bringing you joy? What areas of your life are bringing you joy? How could you have more of that in your life? And that's where that time management, that time efficiency, focusing on one task can really help give you more time to enjoy those areas of your life that are bringing you joy. So thank you for joining me this week. I hope you have a fabulous week. If you have got any reflections on this, please do tag me. Please do get in touch if there are any topics you would like to hear on the podcast. If you are wanting to work with me one-on-one, all the links are in the show notes. And I look forward to joining you next week.